Brenda. I was really struggling to hear you. I hope I'm getting you well. So I think you were talking, or you were asking the question in regard to the to the deputy president. But first of all, let me just tell you something that I observed. Yesterday's speech was an amazing speech that came from the president, and I could many people. Not only myself, many people could now understand when the president said that we are staring at a constitutional moment, and this is highly because of the rhythmic issue of violence after every election 5 years. And he actually mentioned it, that every time, a year prior to elections, a year after elections, there is something that actually happens to this country, that everything comes to a standstill. And that, I believe, is what he actually talked about, and his major concern. But more than that, I think the speech that he gave, which was quite eloquent, you know, he talked about great quotes from the likes of Theodore Roosevelt. He brought in, you know, other people who we read out through history, whose words actually have brought nations together. So on that one, I think when he's talking about us looking at a constitutional moment, is to actually do away with the winner-take-it-all mentality, which he also alluded to. Moving forward, I think also the deputy president talked about BBI being an all-inclusive. I've said this once and I'll repeat again. The BBI process, not only the process, but when it comes out, it has to be Wanjiku-driven. Because if it is Wanjiku-driven, Brenda, I guarantee you, every Kenyan will have a buy-in into this process, and it will be an easy sell more than anything else, because people will see the need to it. They will see how BBI is going to incorporate everyone and bring the country together. Remember, what we are running away from is this rhythmic tension and violence that happens after every 5 years. So moving forward, I think if we are going to put our heads together, ensure that everything that comes on BBI is primarily Wanjiku-driven, I guarantee you, Brenda, we are going to be in a safe place.
But Muthuma, you know, that is the hope of every Kenyan, including the deputy president's wish. But for him to say this, and he said, former Prime Minister, of course, that is ODM leader, Honorable Raila Odinga, has talked about reggae. That is fine. But I guess we'll have a robust national conversation that will bring everybody on board. For the deputy president to say that, it means it still has his fears that people are being left out, especially people who have been seen like criticizing the BBI document.
Again, correct, very correct. You put it, Brenda. You see, I would believe from where I'm seated, governance-wise, you would kind of tend to, you know, they are talking from two different sides of the coin. So what the former Prime Minister is saying is that, you know, this reggae of BBI now must continue, given the fact that you know, it was, then he mentioned, actually, he made a banter of, you know, Shetani alitoka juu akasimamisha reggae, but now the reggae is continuing. What the deputy president is also saying is this, that whatever we do, it has to be an all-inclusive. It is the very same message that the president is talking about. BBI must open up and do away, allow us to have a constitutional moment that will do away with the winner-take-it-all. That tells you it actually has an element of inclusivity, but also at the end of the day, how will it augur well with Wanjiku when you're told, which again the president castigated, that when you're told that the only positions that we're talking about are the top echelons of leadership. So that is something which has not come out very clearly, and I believe that is now where the bone of contention, as I can tell, and this is my own view between the former Prime Minister and the Deputy President, is if we are going to have a BBI that is inclusive into a machinani all the way down, which again tells us if that is the route we are going to go, then we have to see more funding in counties. Then I think a lot of people will be comfortable. But again, Kenyans will actually look at it in such a funny way if BBI is only going to solve an issue where jobs, or rather, you know, positions, if you will, are created for only a few people at the top. So I think we must have convergence. We must come to a resolute that BBI is going to be good for the country as a whole. But primarily, Brenda, let me emphasize on this. It has to be Wanjiku driven. I know the president has actually talked about it and repeatedly again saying that when BBI comes, let us read it, have a conversation with it, because at the end of the day, this is how we are going to be governed moving forward. So what do he actually mentioned when he spoke about us, Kenyans just complaining all the time. We must have our skin in the game. We have to do away with this business that we can complain all the time, but we are not putting our minds together to ascertain how do we solve our problems. So that's why I thought the speech by the president yesterday was a grand speech that required a standing ovation by a mile, because it tended to tell us we can no longer sit on the peripheries. We must get into the game. We must have our voices heard. And so by extension, if that is what Raila Odinga is talking about, the reggae must continue, so be it. And if it's the same thing that the deputy president is emphasizing, that BBI must carry everybody on board, let it be, because that in its entirety will ensure that we don't have that cycle of violence that comes every 5 years.
But then it's good, actually, just pick my mind. It's good the president is saying, like, get into the game and let's move together. But what political message was the Deputy President William Ruto sending yesterday to ODM leader Raila Odinga and also President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is his boss, when he actually, I know they've met in different occasions, spoken out their minds, but yesterday, these two handshake partners were together. The DP was there, and they outrightly told them off. Listen, people, when you want us to get on board, you also have to get our sentiments. You have to put our interest also at heart.
Again, Brenda, you've said it. You've said it well. I think on this one, the president, I think, is in the middle, and he now has to act as the peacemaker between these two factions. What he's telling them, and at the end of the day, I think that's what will come. That's what will come down to, is telling the people who are on this side that, hey, guys, listen, we need to look at the greater picture, and that greater picture is leaving this country united. The president talked about, and I think this is the message that he was trying to bring to both the prime minister, the former prime minister, and the current deputy president. What he was trying to tell them is, this country, we have borrowed it from our children. When he uses words like those, it is saying that we must leave this country in a better place than we found it. And so he's saying, you guys, you may be talking about reggae, but you too are saying that we must have a situation within BBI that must bring everybody together. That is the preamble. That has to be the guiding principle, that at the end of the day, Brenda, BBI will bring each and every Kenyan on board. So the message coming out may come from different directions and may have political connotations, but what BBI must solve is inclusivity. And I think this is probably where we have not really found a way to paint that picture, because from one end, and the deputy president has actually made this concerned, is if we are going to create the only top positions, the prime minister, the deputy prime minister, and the vice, that is not where Kenya needs to be headed. And the prime minister on the other side has said, this issue of violence comes because we have the winner take it all mentality. So how do we marinate the two and ensure that we have a fine print that Kenyans will buy into, which will ensure, and again, I repeat and I emphasize, that which will ensure that every 5 years, the country just goes through and through from one election to the other, just like we do the elections of an MCA, without anybody losing life, without anybody losing their business, or without anybody losing their net worth. What must we do to ensure that this happens? So I agree with you, Brenda. The president has a very big role to play, because he has to play a mediator between those people who do not think that BBI may produce the kind of results that Wanjiku requires, and those that believe that BBI is the it.
All right,
So there has to be
so
somebody who will look into it. And I know the president at this point, he has a bird's eye view of what BBI should represent.
All right.
So I think,
Muzuma,
again, I go back to what he mentioned during his speech, Brenda. All of us,
Muzuma,
instead of criticizing, and I know, I mean, this is something we can talk about until the cows come home. We've not seen the document. So we cannot criticize a document that we have not seen. Neither can we support a document that we haven't seen. That's why the president encourages everybody, when the documents come out, let us sit down, let's have a conversation, and let's ensure that everybody is on board or has a buy-in into this BBI bandwagon.
All right, thank you so much. Gabriel Muzuma, political analyst, talking to us about what transpired yesterday matters, the BBI. So report